what you know. American dreams aren't cheap. If you got
Alright, I tried to copy your setup as best as possible. Unfortunately, I do have full gold Julie. I have one heavy Grothdar, one medium Elambris, so this is stamina. Since this is all purple, I'm going to leave that to try and get closer Magicka spell damage stuff to your results. Running 3 infal, all spell damage, a flame enchant on my fire staff, and a flame enchant on my lightning staff, because I couldn't find what you were running. Ideally, I would have like a shock enchant here and a flame enchant here, or vice versa, because you never want to stack two of the same, or a berserker. But remember, ideally that'll be a maelstrom. I'll do another parse to just kind of demonstrate what that'll look like. One thing that I did notice with your setup is that you're using Wall of Fire on your back bar. Usually you want to put all your dots like Blockade, Cripple, Twisting Path on your back bar. So that's the biggest thing that I can give to you, regardless of if you're running double Destro, or double Fire, double Lightning, one Lightning, one Fire, either or. You want your back bar to look something like this, and then your front bar to look something like this. In a situation where you already have LA Drain, because a lovely healer is there for you, make sure we put Harness here, and then this will become Destro Ultimate, so we get that Inferno, or the Ancient Knowledge passive. But since I'm solo, I'm going to be applying that, so I get the best of both worlds, and I'll be using Meteor in my parse as well. Because in a long fight, you're going to want to run that instead. So bars, just again really quick, are going to look something like this. This is going to have a little bit different results than from what you got, because again, I have my bars set up optimally for what I'm going to be doing. It makes more sense. There's way less bar swapping. It's more fluid rotation, so this should help you out. And then I'm going to demonstrate. So the first thing we want to do is drink a potion before we pull, because we want to let it to get to about 30 to 20 seconds so that we can drink the potion in combat and get that Magicka much sooner to help our sustain and to ensure that our major buffs are going. So I'm going to buff up Siphoning, Relentless, this, drop that heavy attack, and now I'm going to bar swap as it lands. And then I'm just going to go and play all my dots. Now I come to my front bar, my Relentless was ready. Now I'm going to get up another Relentless before I shoot, and then I instantly bar swap. There, I missed 1 or 2 weaves, so my Relentless wasn't ready to fire when I came back, but that's fine. This isn't going to be a perfect parse. Drink my potion because it's off cooldown. A lot of this is just managing buffs. Very little bar swapping, just every couple of seconds to make sure we go back in our back bar to reapply all of our stuff. Shoot our Spectral Bow when we get the chance. Drop our Meteor as soon as we get it. There, I was just able to squeeze out that Spectral Bow proc before it faded. That's a great way to get some extra DPS. It's going to take a lot of practice, and it's going to take really quick fingers spamming, pretty much. There, I missed another weave, so I'm not going to get 3 Spectral Bows. It's whatever. We're not here to be perfect. But we see me, I'm teetering the 30k mark right now in definitely suboptimal gear. So, in terms of what you're doing, it's not super far off just yet, but when I get an execute range, the damage, in terms of potential of what you're doing, there is some stuff. I think most of that, from what I saw on your damage parse, was, it seems to me like you're missing a lot of weaves. So it's going to take a long time to get used to, but try and get a light attack between every single little action you're doing, even if it's a bar swap. So if you're kind of watching my character, you can go back and put it in slow motion, but I'm getting a light attack between everything I do, or trying to. So even if it's just applying a buff, I want a light attack so that we get those relentless stacks or merciless resolve, whatever you want to call it, because that's a big part of our DPS. Because I noticed you only had about 12 on that parse. Granted, it was the 3 million dummy, so obviously you're not going to have as long of time to get as many, but that's definitely something to work on. Now that I'm in execute range, I'm going to start executing, but I'm still going to keep up my dots. Luckily for us, our sustain gets a little bit better once we're in execute. Next bar swap, I'm going to use a Soul Harvest because I noticed you only had one in your recap, even though I could clearly get a couple. So now I'm not going to go and reapply buffs because he's almost dead. I'm just going to finish him off. And I break 30k. So even though we're not optimally set up, ideally you'd want to be running Grothar there. You'd be much better. Obviously our health is lower because I'm running Witch Mothers. So I would be doing probably about 1k DPS less. I'd be pulling roughly 29k or so if I had the max HP properly. But normally I can run Blue Food because Medj Blade OP. So let's look at our parse really quick. Apprentice, same thing. Witch Mother, same thing. Minor Berserk, you had a really good job at keeping that up. Siphoning attacks is up a little bit more because I'm trying to keep it up. My crit is lower than yours, and I'm not sure what you're running to have your crit be higher. It might be like a precise back bar or something. But ideally, you'd have double infuse, so there's no real advantage to that. Oh, you were running Ice Heart on your one piece or something, so that's why. Again, ideally, you have a two-piece monster set like Grothar, Elambris, Valken, because that, I mean, we see right here. Oh, I didn't have one active because I tried to replicate. That's right. But normally, Grothar pulls at least 1k DPS, and that's a big power spike. But let's look at our parse. So Assassin's Will was my #1 source of damage. It was pretty low for you. Twisting Path was number 2. Funnel Health is 3. Light attacks were 10.5% of my DPS from Flame and 6.1% from Lightning. So almost 17% of my DPS came from light attacks alone. It's really important is getting those weaves in. Blockade was roughly 3k DPS. I wasn't applying off balance with this because I didn't have a shock enchant, so that even though I was running that, normally I would be doing way more DPS. So again, ideally, if you're gonna run a lightning staff on your back bar, you're gonna run Blockade of Storms because we want all of our dots back here. And then you'll want a shock enchant on your front bar so that you can apply that concussed, and then it'll set enemies off balance. Every time you attack on a target that's or concussed, you set them off balance for the next 4 seconds. It refreshes every tick. And if you're using an infused shock enchant on your front hand, you'll be proccing that like crazy. And then on your back bar, you can do Flame, you can do Absorb Magic. If you want to run Blue Food, you can get a lot of sustain out of that. You can run a Poison, a Magicka Sustain Poison, because we don't have a VMA staff yet. So those are just some minor tips in terms of improvements. But in terms of ideal, again, remember, you want to run Grothar or Valken if you're from a range, or Elambris if you're doing 1 flame, 1 shock, because then you'll have 2 chances to proc, and if you see each of the effects has a cooldown, so you can get double that tooltip if it's proccing off cooldown. So it's really, really strong. For 3 Infal is fine. I do prefer Moondancer in terms of DPS. I really like that Max Magicka now that that's been buffed, and crit is kind of RNG, so you can run an Infal if you want. It's totally preference. And then ideally what you'd be doing that, like in terms of getting your ideal gear, you want to replace your front bar. Instead of it being a Julie Staff, you want it to be a Moondancer or an Infal. You want it to be infused, Flame, or Shock Enchant. And then on our back bar, we do want that really juicy Maelstrom Staff. Inferno is preferred to apply Wall of Fire. Otherwise, if you are doing a support build to apply that off balance, remember, it can be a Lightning Staff. There's no sweat about that. They both do really good DPS. One has more raid utility, one has better single target and solo DPS. So if you're a solo player, fire is better for you, and if you're a group player and you really like bringing that to the table, then lightning is going to be great. And lightning is even great in solo application, so don't feel like you have to pick one or the other. You can totally pick, or don't feel like you have to pick one instead of the other. You can go between both, whatever, and that should be infused ideally. Any trait will work for Maelstrom. It's really worth it, even if it's like powered or something. And then coming with retraits in Update 16, that'll be a really nice thing to help out with. So, no, it wasn't perfect, but hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea of how to improve, things to look for. So, big thing, again, is Assassin's Will. I guess we'll do a 3 million dummy parse. Let me just build up my ultimate, so we can kind of demonstrate what it looks like on that, because that'll be a little bit more inflated. Since it's a smaller target and we have an execute, our DPS should look a little bit nicer. I should be able to pull like 31k on that. But again, remember, that's because I have a little bit more health, or a little bit less health than you, because I'm running Witch Mothers and I don't have like health attributes or enchants on my gear, because ideally I personally prefer blue food unless I'm doing like Halls of Fabrication, and then I'll carry a few pieces of gear with me, like Valken for the max health, or Maw of the Infernal, or something like that. So again, what I'm gonna do is before I pull, I drink that potion so we get that sustain. That means we get more ultimate in the fight. Everything is great. So here's the 3 million dummy. I'm gonna wait just a little bit to allow that potion cooldowner to go down to about 35 or 25. I'm gonna apply my buffs. We're gonna do the same thing. I misplaced, and I accidentally casted Relentless a little too soon, because it does have that cast time. So if you cast it a little too quickly, like as you're getting the stack, just there, I did it again, you ruin the proc. So that's a big issue with Magic and Nightblade right now, is if you're playing too fast, you actually lose DPS. So that is something to keep in mind. You usually want to give it like just a millisecond. It's a 0.1 second cast time, so literally 1/100th of a second in terms of letting that appear before you press the button. There I bar swapped early instead of recasting Siphoning Strikes, because I wanted to make sure that I got the Spectral Bow proc. So I'll recast it here, even though I totally don't need it. We're in execute phase now, so let's start doing that. And instead of rebuffing, I'm just gonna kill him. So yeah, on the 7 million, way inflated, breaking 35k with... Oh, I had the wrong gear on. Well, I guess that kind of demonstrates what it would look like if you had more optimal gear, is 35k with 2 Grothdar instead, and then a VMA staff. Let me fix that and demonstrate what it's going to look like instead. Nope. Build up my ulti off this guy back here. Alright, so our ultimate's almost ready, because obviously we're doing a parse. In a boss situation, you'd have your ultimate ready for a boss. So that's kind of what this is demonstrating, is like, we want to make sure we have an ultimate at the start, because we should be saving it for the beginning of a boss fight. So, out of combat, I'm going to apply my buffs. There I missed another weave because I went too soon. Because if you go too quickly, especially with funnel, it's really easy to miss some of these light attacks. Like there, for some reason it's just missing. But usually, if you find yourself like me, where you're pressing buttons a little too quick for the game, just kind of give it a breather, slow down a little bit. So we're almost at execute phase. Try and get a relentless before we... Yep. We just missed it. But now we're going to go into execute. Arrhenius bar swap there, don't. Why Soul Harvest? Now here I'm just going to place Blockade, because that's your biggest source of damage usually. And then I go into execute. So we're still able to break 30k. Even though I made tons of mistakes in there, so it kind of showcasing like, hey, you don't need to be perfect to be able to hit 30k. Missing some of those weaves. Let me turn down this music, I'm sorry. So yeah. Again, ideally, Maelstrom Staff here. If you don't have it yet, then you want one Shock Enchant front bar or Fire Staff or Flame Enchant front bar, and then the opposite of whatever you did. So, like, ideally, what I would be doing is doing this, an Inferno with a Shock Enchant front and then a Flame Enchant back bar. That's going to help your DPS go up easily 1k, because those enchants are really, really strong. And then again, using two-piece Grothdar, Falcon, Elambris instead. Elambris especially if you're running a one lightning, one fire staff, because Elambris is really, really strong because it can double proc. So hopefully this has helped you in terms of figuring out what needs to be worked on. Mainly it's just a weaving and managing relentless focus. Let's open up that parse real quick. 11 hits. Let me take a quick look at yours. I think yours was 12. Where is that? So 13 on that one and 12. So you're doing a good job with your Assassin's Will. I take that back. So very good job with that. You had 61 light attacks with your Flame Staff and 18 with your Lightning Staff. And then if we look at mine, 52 light attacks on my front bar with my Flame Staff and 33 with my Lightning Staff. So you have more weaving on your front bar, but you have way less weaving on your back bar, even though it's still really important to weave in between those, because that's still going to give merciless stacks and stuff. So that is one thing to work on, is your back bar a little bit. Try and get more weaves there instead of just focusing on your front bar. So that should help a little bit. And Assassin's Will should probably be your number one, because with this build, since we don't have empowered Wall of Fire or anything like that, doing a little bit less DPS. Let me just open up your parse again really quick. So your number one was funnel health. That's usually signifying that you're overcasting funnel. So you had 32 funnel casts, I had 25, so that kind of shows that you're using funnel more often than you should be. In your rotation, you want to make sure you're managing your buffs instead of just firing away your spammable. Then your light attack was number 2. That's good. You always want your light attacks to be really high up there. They're very important. Impale was number 3, which you had 10 casts, I had 8, so you did a little bit more executing. I think I started a little bit late, so good that you caught that. Blockade of Fire had 86 ticks. Mine had 85, so you kept up Blockade perfectly. Path of Darkness had 96 ticks. Mine had 96, perfect. Although mine is a little bit shorter. Ah, yeah, that's right. So mine is about 10 seconds shorter in duration than yours, so you're missing maybe one blockade, one Path of Darkness. Now, Crippling Grasp had 40 ticks. Mine had 45, so you missed one cripple. Maybe two, because again, yours is a little bit longer. Fiery Weapon procced 36 times. Mine procced 44. But again, that's because I was running 2 fiery weapons, so ideally that would not be as high. Yours is the correct number. 22 shooting star ticks for a parse like this. Perfect. Again, your lightning light attacks were 19. Mine were 33, so almost double. So that's something to definitely work on. And then you had 8 initial hits out of cripple. I had 9. So yeah, just minor stuff. You're really close to where you should be. Just remember, change up your bars a tiny little bit to help the fluidity of your rotation. Work on your back bar weaving. Try and use a 2-piece monster set instead of a 1-1. Unless you want that max health, then you can run like a 2-piece Falcon would probably be the perfect blend for you. Get a little bit more health and damage. So making those changes should help. But as a Magic and Nightblade, because we have Siphoning Strikes, you have the option to run blue food with only having to heavy attack maybe once or twice in a shorter rotation like this. I think I heavy attack once, maybe 2 times in a full parse where I'm running blue food. So hopefully this has helped you kind of get an idea of where to look for improvements. I know it was a little bit longer, but you've helped me so much. Thank you. That I've wanted to kind of let you know that I really appreciate it and help you improve in whatever way I can help you with. So really, really thank you. Hope this has helped. And let me know. Send me a message in game or on Discord or whatever. This will be on unlisted for you only. So.